What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my full card breakdown and prediction video for UFC Seattle. We have Song Yadong going against Henry Cejudo in what has to be the most cursed card of all time. I mean, this is a card that has just fight cancellation after fight cancellation after short notice replacement after short notice replacement. Lost some good fights. We lost Edson Barbosa versus Steve Garcia. We lost Billy Ray Goff. He's supposed to be taking on Adam Fugit. We lost Dominic Cruz. This card has just taken so many hits, and now we are left with 11 fights. So, yeah, definitely going to talk about what's left. And yeah, I still think there's some solid fights on this card. Looking forward to the co-main event, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez going against Brendan Allen. Some other fights throughout the card should be fun as well. So yeah, looking forward to breaking it down as always. Before we get into the video, if you guys could please do me a couple favors. 1, like the video. 2, subscribe to the channel. And then 3, leave me a comment. All 3 of those things go a very, very long way. And I do appreciate everybody that comments, and subscribes. If you guys do want to support me more, the best way to do so and the best way to get more content from me is checking out dfsbythenumbers.com. And yeah, looking to probably keep it light this week. Did a good job last week with UFC Vegas 102 bouncing back. Had a good night last week, but this week it's sketchy. It is a very, very sketchy card. Like I said, lots of short notice replacements, a lot of newcomers, a lot of guys where you're like, who the hell is that guy? Who the hell is that guy they're bringing in? But yeah, looking forward to breaking it down, guys. I do want to shout out Prize Picks. Right now, if you guys use the code DFSBTN, you'll get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Whether that wins or lose, you'll get $50 instantly into your Prize Picks account. Check it out. Get that free money and use that code DFSBTN. And with all that out of the way, I say we get into it, and we're going to kick it off with an absolute dumpster fire of a fight. It is Modestas Bukauskas going against Raffael Cerquira. We got Modestas Bukauskas, 31 years old, 6'1" with a 78-inch reach, 16-6, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Raffael Cerquira, 34 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach, 11-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So we've had a lot of low-level fights, throughout UFC history. We had Mike Jackson, Dean Barry, CM Punk was in the UFC for a while, for a couple fights. This might be one of the lowest level fights I think I've ever seen in my entire life. This is bad. On one hand, you have Modestas Bukauskas, who, I don't know, I mean, he's just average everywhere. He's very low volume on the feet. He barely throws anything. Like his last fight that he won against Marcin Prachnio, the dude got outlanded 70-38. And he was going to decision with Zach Palga, only landing 56 strikes. Went to decision with Tyson Pedro, only landed 44 strikes. Just so low volume, not a ton of power. I mean, if you're not knocking out Zach Palga and Marcin Prachnio, I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, I mean, I think he's okay. He has 5-round experience outside the UFC. He's fought some good guys, but I don't know, he just doesn't really do much for me, to be honest. On the flip side, we got Raffael Cerquira, who's just a complete unknown. We know nothing about this guy. There is literally 2 fights available to watch with Cerquira. One was a fight where he did get a nice knockout win late in the first round, and then the other was a fight that lasted 30 seconds against Ibo Aslan. And we can't really take much away from that. What I will say, though, is that was probably one of the worst, if not the worst, debut I think I've ever seen in my entire life. But that's Ibo Aslan. Ibo Aslan would knock Modestas' head off. So what bothers me is a couple things. Raffael Cerquira was a pick'em against Ibo Aslan. A pick'em. And now all of a sudden he's minus 260 here against Modestas. Raffael Cerquira, again, we don't know anything about him. What we do know is he's a black belt in BJJ. He trains with Jailton Almeida and trains with Bruno Silva and them. But what I do know is Modestas Bukauskas has never looked minus 310 against anybody ever, I don't think. Even against Prachnio, the dude almost got knocked out twice in the second round. Barely beat Zach Palga. Barely beat Tyson Pedro. Tons of losses. Lost to Petrino, Roundtree, Mikel Olszewski, Jimmy Crute. I guess the best he's ever looked was against Andreas Michailidis when Michailidis fell through the cage and the ref stopped the fight at the end of the first round. So I don't know what to think here. This is definitely a 1-800 gambler fight. In terms of a pick, because I got to pick one of these dudes, I'm actually going to pick Cerquira, just due to the fact that, listen, on the feet, Modestas, the better technical striker, but he just doesn't throw anything. And if this fight hits the ground, in theory, Cerquira is going to have a significant advantage. So I'm going to take Cerquira to win this fight. I'm going to take him to win by knockout. I think somebody probably gets knocked out here, but I'm going to take the big dog. Just seeing Modestas at minus 310 just really rubs me the wrong way. But this fight is absolutely awful. Just absolutely awful. Just like most Modestas Bukauskas fights are. But yeah, give me the big dog here to kick off the night. 1-800 Gambler. All right, moving on. We got Mansur Abdul-Malik going against Nick Klein. We got Mansur Abdul-Malik, 27 years old, 6'2" with an 80-inch reach, 7-0, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Nick Klein, 29 years old, 6'1", with a 77-inch reach, 6-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We have Abdul-Malik as the biggest favorite on the card. He is currently sitting as a minus 900 favorite. Nick Klein plus 600. I imagine this probably gets to minus 1,000 even. Yeah, I mean, Mansur Abdul-Malik was supposed to fight Antonio Tricoli, which I thought would have been an absolute hilarious fight. I think Malik would have really hurt Tricoli, and I think Tricoli made a really smart move, and the smart move was pulling out. But in steps Nick Klein, who went out there on the Contender Series, came in on a couple days' notice and got a first-round submission win in like 30 seconds. So, but geez, I mean, they're not doing Nick Klein any favors. And to be frank, like I don't know why Nick Klein accepted this fight, to be honest. But yeah, it's Mansur Abdul-Malik, and I think he's going to really hurt Nick Klein here, and the odds certainly do indicate that. Nick Klein is going to look to get the fight down to the ground. I really struggle to believe he's going to be able to take down Mansur Abdul-Malik early on, and then on the feet, it's one-way traffic. Nick Klein is very hittable, and you don't want to be hittable against Mansur Abdul-Malik. You don't want to be taken down and on your back against Mansur Abdul-Malik. This guy has some of the nastiest ground and pound you'll see. So yeah, I just see Mansur knocking him out brutally in the first round. So yeah, give me Mansur Abdul-Malik by first round knockout. Next fight, we have Javid Basharat going against Ricky Simón. We got Basharat, 29 years old, 5'9", with a 69-inch reach, 14-1 and 3-1-1 no contests in his last 5 fights. Ricky Simón, 32 years old, 5'6", with a 70-inch reach, 20-6 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. Javid Basharat opened up minus 275. He's currently minus 300. Ricky Simón opened up plus 235, currently plus 250. A lot of wide lines on this card. We already talked about Modestas being minus 300, which is stupid. Mansur's minus 900. Even Javid's minus 300 here. But it's hard to pick Ricky Simón at this point. And it's weird with Simón, right? Like, Ricky Simón is only 32 years old. Why is he looking washed? Why is like his last couple performances have just been he looks off. He looks off. He came in there in his last fight with the knee sleeve and just a terrible look against Vinicius Oliveira. I know it's Vinicius Oliveira, but still just absolutely not really that competitive. Against Mario Batista, the fight really wasn't that competitive at all. Same thing with Song Yadong. So these last 3 fights, like, yes, they're good opponents, but just it didn't really show anything in any of those 3 fights. So now he's going against Javid, and it's like Ricky Simón needs to go out there and wrestle, right? He needs to go out there and wrestle for 15 minutes. If he does that, he certainly has a chance. I just struggle to see him, A, taking down Javid consistently, and B, holding down Javid consistently, and then on the feet, it should be Basharat all day. So, although I'm not in love with the price tag, I'm not in love with most of the price tags this week, and it'll be a very light card for me. I got to pick Basharat, and I got to pick him to win by decision. Basharat, younger, Ricky Simón, it's hard to call him washed because he's so young, but he looks off lately, I'll say that. But yeah, give me Basharat by decision. Next fight, we got Nursulton. Ruziboev going against Eric McConico. We got Ruziboev, 31 years old, 6'5", with a 76-inch reach, 34-9 and 2, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Eric McConico, 34 years old, 6 foot, with a 75-inch reach, 9-2-1, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. What do you know? I'm another minus 300 favorite here. Ruziboev opened up minus 350, currently minus 300. McConico opened up plus 285, currently plus 250. And I thought it was the funniest thing ever. I've never seen anything like it. So they announced that this fight was booked, and McConico's coming in on short notice, of course. And the picture they used was Eric McConico as a corner man with Jared Cannonier. They cropped out Cannonier, and they just had Eric McConico in his corner man outfit. Never seen that before. But I went and watched this guy. He's not terrible. He's not terrible. He has a win against Maki Pitolo, who was in the UFC, kind of broke Pitolo late second round, finished him in the third, which was nice to see. But I do really worry about the chin of Eric McConico. Nursulton minus 300. I mean, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are high on Nursulton for some reason. I'll never understand why. I don't think he's proven anything yet. You go watch tape on Nursulton outside the UFC, and I kid you not, I watched like 10 fights outside the UFC, and every single fight I watched, he gets taken down and then gets a Kimura submission win. Like, that's how his fights play out. And then in this UFC, I just feel like we haven't learned anything about him. He eye poke knocks out SD Dumas. He one punch knocks out Bruno Ferreira. Didn't really learn anything about him in those fights, and then Joaquin Buckley takes him down for 3 rounds. So, I don't know. I'm not sold on Ruziboev. I know people think this guy's the next big thing. I don't personally see it, but in this fight, I just think the size, the length, the power is probably going to be too much for McConico here, who has been knocked out in both of his losses, who has shown durability issues, who is coming in here on short notice. So I got to go Ruziboev. Again, I hate the minus 300. Don't lay minus 300 on this dude, but I'm going to pick Ruziboev to win this fight by first round knockout. Moving on to the next fight, a fight that should be absolutely hilarious. We got Ibo Aslan going against Ion Cutelaba. We got Aslan, 28 years old, 6'3" with a 77.5-inch reach. He's 14-1 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Ion Cutelaba, 31 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach, 18-10-1 and 2-1 or 2-3 in his last 5 fights. So take a look at the odds. We have Ibo Aslan open up plus 120, currently minus 160. Ion Cutelaba open up minus 140, currently plus 140. Ibo Aslan's a very popular play. I see a lot of people betting him, and this line is getting blown out, and I kind of expected to keep getting blown out. I really wanted to find a reason to, back the Cutelaba side here, but first and foremost, Ion Cutelaba is probably one of the most untrustworthy fighters in the UFC. Sometimes he shows up with 3-round cardio, can wrestle his way to decision like he did against Devin Clark, looked career best in that fight. And then sometimes he goes out there, he wrestles hard for 3 minutes, death gasses, and gets finished. More often than not, he wrestles for 3 minutes, death gasses, and gets finished. And I'm looking at this fight, and it's like, in theory, Cutelaba has a path here. Anytime we've seen Ibo Aslan off his back, he's looked awful, right? The first Anton Turkalj fight, as soon as Turkalj was able to get him down in the second round and Aslan was a little bit tired, instantly tapped him out. Instantly. So, yeah, if Ion Cutelaba can get the wrestling going, can get on top, he can potentially finish Ibo Aslan here. The problem I have is I think Aslan's takedown defense is really good. This is a guy that trained at Extreme Couture for a while. Those guys typically have very good takedown defense. It looks like this time he's training at Tiger Muay Thai, and I think he's improving. I think he's making a lot of improvements. This is a guy in Ibo Aslan who, like I said, has that takedown defense, has good striking, good volume, a ton of power. I think the cardio is suspect, but he's also a guy that can carry his power late. He has 2 third-round knockouts, including one against a very tough Anton Turkalj. So, like I said, I wanted to pick Cutelaba here. I think he is live, but I just see Aslan stuffing the takedowns. And when you're wrestling offensively and you're getting your takedowns stuffed, I mean, that requires a ton of energy. And, we've just seen Cutelaba just fall off a cliff in terms of the cardio. So, Aslan, I think he'll slow down. Cutelaba, I think he'll slow down. But like I said, Aslan has shown the ability to carry that power late. So I'm going to go with Aslan here by knockout. I would be surprised if this fight went 15, but I think that knockout can come in any round. I think it can come in the first. I think it could come in the second, and I even think it could come in the third. So I'll say second round knockout for Ibo Aslan here. I think at some point Cutelaba is going to slow down, and once he does, I think Aslan's going to put it on him and get him out of there. So give me Ibo Aslan to win this fight by second round knockout. Should be a fun and hilarious fight like most Ion Cutelaba fights are. Next fight, we have the closest line fight on the card. It is Andre Fili going against Mel Costa. We got Andre Fili, 34 years old, 5'11", with a 74-inch reach, 24-11, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Mel Costa, 28 years old, 5'10", with a 71-inch reach, 21-7, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Fili opened up minus 200, currently minus 120. Mel Costa opened up plus 170, currently plus 100. And yeah, it's a close fight, right? I think it's around a pick 'em for a reason. Fili looks like a lot of people were on him this week, and I do imagine him, closing as the favorite. But yeah, it's a close fight. And when I look at this fight, it's like, Andre Fili, this is a guy who, I'm a big fan of Fili. How can you not be? This is a guy that brings a ton of fun and exciting fights. More often than not, he's in a big war, and I think those wars, though, like, they're starting to catch up to him a little bit, right? At this latter half of his career, this is a guy in Fili who used to have that incredible durability, but now all of a sudden we're seeing him getting dropped, we're seeing him getting wobbled, we're seeing him get knocked out. 34 years old at this point with 35 fights, and like I said, the majority of those 35 fights being wars in there. I don't think his last fight against Cub Swanson was the greatest look. I actually think Cub Swanson probably won that fight. And this is a fight where I do think primarily it's going to take place standing. In theory, Fili could go out there and maybe get some takedowns, but he just hasn't really done that in a very long time. Like, the last time Fili came in with a wrestle-heavy game plan was back in 2020 against Charles Jourdain. Outside of that, he's had probably 10 fights since. Has not really looked to wrestle one bit. If anything, maybe Mel Costa can go out there and get some takedowns. Mel Costa has some very solid grappling, and Mel Costa, he's been wrestling his last 3 fights, a total of 7 takedowns his last 3 fights. So, but yeah, like I said, I do primarily think this is going to be standing, and when it does stay standing, I like the striking of both guys, but Mel Costa has a lot of tools on the feet, very hard kicks. And what I like about Mel Costa is he mixes it up to the head, to the legs, to the body. I thought that Austin Lingo performance was very good. Some of those body kicks he was landing against Lingo would finish a lot of guys in the division, right? So with Mel Costa being the younger guy by 6 years, being in just a lot less wars, I think he has a little more tools on the feet, a little more volume. I think a little bit better durability at this point. I'm going to side with the underdog here in Mel Costa. So give me Mel Costa to win the fight. I think it's going to be close, though. I think it's going to be close. I think it goes 15. I think both these guys probably get dropped. I think it's going to be a war. But I'm going to take Mel Costa to win this fight and take him to win this fight by a very close decision. Next fight up, we have Alonzo Menifield going against newcomer Julius Walker. We got Alonzo Menifield, 37 years old, 6 foot, with a 76-inch reach, 15-5-1, and 2-2-1 in his last 5 fights. Julius Walker, 25 years old, 6'4", with an 81-inch reach, 6-0, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. So this is one of those fights that was put on the card randomly because they needed fights because every single fight fell off this week. And yeah, they're bringing in Menifield here, and they're bringing in newcomer Julius Walker. Julius Walker's massive for the light heavyweight division. He's actually going to have a 4-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. And he was supposed to fight some 2 and 3 dude coming up before he got signed to this fight, some awful 2 and 3 dude. So he's taken a big, massive, giant step up in competition. And yeah, I watched all the tape on Julius Walker, and I think he's a fun and exciting fighter, very young, 25 years old. He's looking to get the fight down to the ground early and often. I don't see a ton of striking from Walker on the feet, but when he does strike, he's very hittable, leaves a lot of openings, he's very reckless, he has a lot of power, of course, he's massive and hits hard, but yeah, on the feet is a little bit too wild for my liking. And I'm looking at this fight and it's geez, I think it's a great spot for Alonzo Menifield, but holy crap, has Alonzo Menifield looked awful his last 2 fights. Mind you, against very good competition in Carlos Olberg and Azamat Mirzakhanov, but just in those fights, in the Olberg fight, he comes in there and gets finished in 12 seconds. Like, what are you doing, Alonzo? And then against Azamat Mirzakhanov, he gets beat up badly. The fight wasn't even remotely competitive and gets knocked out brutally in the second round. So back-to-back brutal knockout losses for Menifield. I don't like that, but I'm looking at this fight stylistically, and it's I don't think Walker's taking down Menifield at all, really. I mean, Menifield's very physically strong. Menifield has very good takedown defense, and he's fought good wrestlers before. This guy's very hard to take down and hard to hold down. So yeah, I'm not convinced Walker takes this dude down, and if this fight's on the feet, it's very clear to me that Menifield is the much better striker, much better defensively, but Menifield's 12 years older. The chin at this point, it is looks like it's diminishing a little bit, and like I said, Walker, although at a skill discrepancy on the feet, he hits hard. So I think one of these guys are getting served. I think one of these guys are getting knocked out brutally. I'm going to pick Menifield. It's hard to be confident in him, and it's hard to be confident, especially at this price. It looks like money has came in on Menifield this the last 24 hours or so. Like I said, I love the matchup for him, but I'm worried here about Menifield. But I got to go Menifield here. Give me Menifield by first round knockout. I think he stuffs the takedowns. I think he lands something big, and when Menifield lands clean, you're more than likely going out. So give me Menifield by first round knockout. Should be a banger of a fight. As should this next one. We got Gene Silva going against Melsik Baghdasaryan. We got Gene Silva, 28 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach, 14-2, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Melsik, 33 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach, 8-2, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Gene Silva opened up minus 200. He is currently minus 560. Melsik Baghdasaryan opened up plus 170. He's currently plus 410. We are paying the Fighting Nerds tax because, geez, it's a wide line. And I'm looking at the fight, and it's like, man, if these guys go out there and strike for 15 minutes, it's hard to say that Gene Silva's a minus 560 favorite because Melsik Baghdasaryan, we haven't seen him fight in a while. He's coming off of a torn labrum, about a year and a half off. But what we do know about Melsik is he's a very, very high-level kickboxer. Melsik's striking is absolutely no joke for the first 7.5 minutes. The cardio is a major concern. The submission defense, the ground game, the grappling is a major concern. And that's what I would kind of like to see Gene Silva go to here. Gene Silva, of course, training with the Fighting Nerds. This guy, he can grapple. He does have some submissions on his record. I went back and watched every fight I could of Silva. There's not a ton of fights available. I've never seen him shoot a takedown outside the UFC. Inside the UFC, he has shot a couple in, but wasn't really able to get control time. But yeah, I would like to see him go for takedowns here. I'd like to see him grapple a little bit, because if he's able to take down Melsik, especially mid to late in the fight, take down Melsik, secure position, like he's probably going to sub Melsik with ease here. I just think Melsik's ground game is a huge liability. I think the cardio is a huge liability. Coming off of injuries, he's had a couple injuries, Melsik, in these last couple years. So I got to go with Gene Silva here. And yeah, I think he puts it on Melsik. I think early on, Melsik might even win this first round. I think if Silva strikes with Melsik for the first 5 minutes, I think Melsik might win the first round. But as the fight goes on, I think the pressure, the craziness, just the absolute craziness of Silva is going to start wearing on Melsik. The takedowns are going to start wearing on Melsik. And I think Gene Silva finishes Melsik Baghdasaryan in the second round. Could be knockout, could be submission. If he grapples, I think the sub's super live, but he probably just goes out there and strikes with him. I'll say he breaks Melsik and knocks him out late second round here. Moving on to the next fight, we have another short notice replacement, Rob Font versus Gene Matsumoto. Matsumoto coming in for Dominic Cruz. Matsumoto, 25 years old, 5'6", with a 68.5-inch reach, 16-0, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Rob Font, 37 years old, 5'8", with a 71.5-inch reach, 21-8, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Matsumoto opened up minus 150, currently minus 180. Rob Font opened up plus 130, currently plus 155. So this is a tough one for me because, Rob Font was training for Dominic Cruz, and now he's taking on Gene Matsumoto. With that Dominic Cruz fight, he didn't have to worry about, getting taken down. I think that Cruz-Font fight was going to take place standing for 15 minutes. So he probably wasn't worrying about, the takedowns here. Now he's getting Gene Matsumoto on short notice, and Matsumoto will grapple here, right? So, and if he does, it's like if he grapples here, if Matsumoto comes in here with the right game plan, he probably makes it easy, to be honest. I mean, Rob Font's takedown defense and ground game at this stage of his career has looked just awful. I mean, that Sandhagen fight, I know it's Corey Sandhagen, but that was the worst excuse for a performance I've ever seen. I know Rob Font came in on short notice, but he might as well have not even shown up if he was going to lay on his back for 20 minutes. I mean, this guy got controlled for 20 minutes. Kyler Phillips was working Rob Font on the mat for the first 5 minutes until he gassed out. Yeah, I think if Gene Matsumoto wrestles and grapples here, he is going to make this look pretty fairly easy. The problem with Matsumoto is I don't think he's the best wrestler, but what he is a good grappler. If he does get you down, you're going to stay down, and you might even get subbed. So yeah, I think Matsumoto, with the right game plan, could absolutely win this fight. Rob Font is a 44% takedown defense, so it might not matter that Matsumoto is not the best wrestler in the world, right? So, yeah, I got to go Matsumoto here. On the feet, Rob Font is absolutely game. On the feet, this should be a very fun and competitive fight. I'd like the durability a little bit more at this stage of their careers of Matsumoto, but I just think where Matsumoto has the biggest edge in this fight will be on the mat. So I'm going to go Matsumoto here to win this fight. Might even be live for a sub, but I'll say decision. Rob Font's one of those guys that he does have good submission defense, but he'll kind of just lay on his back a little bit. He won't make a ton of mistakes. He won't try to get up. He's content to just kind of stay on his back and lose minutes, and that's kind of how I see the fight going for the most part. So give me G Matsumoto. I'll say he wins this fight by decision. Next, we have the co-main event. It is Anthony Fluffy Hernandez going against Brendan Allen. We got Hernandez, 31 years old, 6 foot, with a 75-inch reach, 13-2, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Brendan Allen, 29 years old, 6'2", with a 75-inch reach, 24-6, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Hernandez opened up minus 400. He is currently a minus 280 favorite. Brendan Allen opened up plus 300, currently plus 240. So, as we know, this is a rematch from a fight that happened 7-8 years ago. I went back and watched that fight, and I mean, there's not a ton you could take away. I mean, that fight was so long ago, but at the same time, it's like I kind of see the fight playing out a little similarly to how it played out 7 years ago. And how it played out was early on, Brendan Allen did have some success in the first round, was able to get into mount. The problem was, Hernandez's scrambling ability was just a little bit too much. The willingness to just wrestle nonstop, I think it really got to Allen. Allen ended up on bottom for the last couple rounds of the fight. But here in this matchup, here's how I see it going. I think early on, Allen might have some success here. We see Fluffy lose some first rounds in the UFC, and I think Allen might be able to win maybe the first round here. But the problem with this fight for Allen is Fluffy just doesn't stop. He just doesn't stop wrestling. He doesn't stop scrambling. He's just non-stop. Just won't stop. And a lot of guys, most guys in the division are not able to keep up with Fluffy Hernandez and that pressure, that wrestling heavy, the grappling heavy, the scrambling heavy pace that he puts up with. So yeah, early on, Allen might be able to even take down Hernandez, might be able to get into some advantageous positions, might be able to put Hernandez into a couple bad spots, right? But as the fight goes on, I think Hernandez is going to wear on Allen. I think he's going to get him tired. I think he's going to take him down, rinse and repeat, out-scramble him, end up on top, get into some dominant positions. And what I'll say is, Allen was on an absolute roll, an absolute heater. This guy looked unstoppable for a good stretch of fights. He looked off in that Imavov fight. He looked very bad in an Imavov fight. Prior to that, he was on like a seven fight win streak. But against Imavov, he just looked really, really bad. He was getting out-grappled by Imavov. Imavov was on top, and Allen really had no... If that Brendan Allen shows up that fought Imavov, Hernandez is probably finishing him, to be honest. But yeah, I think Allen probably wins the first, maybe not even. But I think as the fight goes on, Hernandez is going to get the better of the grappling, and I'll say Hernandez wins this fight by a decision, winning the last 2 rounds here, maybe even finishing Allen. Like I said, if that Imavov shows, the Allen that fought Imavov shows up, he probably does finish Allen, but I'll say Hernandez here, and Hernandez by a decision. And then finally, we have the main event. It is Song Yadong going against Henry Cejudo. We got Song Yadong, 27 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach, 21-8-1, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Henry Cejudo, 38 years old, 5'4", with a 67.5-inch reach, 16-4, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. You guessed it, another minus 300 favorite on the card. Yadong opened up minus 225, currently minus 280. Cejudo opened up plus 190, currently plus 240. And yeah, I mean, if this fight was 4 years ago, right? I mean, we're betting Henry here. The fact of the matter is this is a 38-year-old bantamweight who I'm just not sure is taking his career seriously anymore. I would not be surprised if this was the last fight of Henry Cejudo and he retires for the second time. We got to remember, this guy retired. He retired like four and a half years ago. He retired. He took 3 years off, and he came back against Aljamain Sterling, lost a close decision, lost a decision against Merab. So he lost against two very solid fighters, but he's only getting older. And like I said, I'm not sure if he's taking this serious. I think he's on a big. He's not the same fighter, right? That fought 4 or 5 years ago at this point. We know that. So I like this fight for Song Yadong. I think that on the feet, I like the striking of Song Yadong. I think he's gonna give Henry a lot of problems here. Is Henry gonna be able to take him down and hold him down? I don't think so. I think Henry can take him down, hold him down. I don't think so. I think Song Yadong's takedown defense and get-up game is very good. And it's improved quite a bit. Because I remember the Stamen fight years ago, where Stamen was able to take him down and hold him down here and there. Song Yadong's improved so much. And you got to expect that of a guy in Song Yadong who's only 27 years old. So Song Yadong, 11 years younger. He's going to have a big height advantage. He's going to be bigger. And just probably wants it more. I mean, I saw an interview with Henry Cejudo. The dude was like smoking the entire interview. I'm not sure what he's doing. Like, the dude has a fight coming up. This dude's not Carlos. Only Carlos Praches can do something like that. So yeah, give me Song Yadong. I'll say Song Yadong wins this fight. A pretty clear one-sided decision. Maybe Henry gets a takedown here or there, but yeah, give me Song Yadong. Song Yadong by decision in this one. There you guys have it. UFC Seattle, a.k.a. the most cursed card in UFC history, and it wouldn't shock me if more madness happened throughout the week. If they added a fight, if we lost a fight, it wouldn't shock me. But I wanted to get this out, was able to get ahead, and I just want to move on to next week. This card, man, I don't know. If you're into to big favorites, this might be your card, man. But a lot of these big favorites, I just don't think a lot of these price tags are warranted. So we'll see, though. Yeah, if you guys could do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the post notifications, getting my DraftKings content out throughout the week, betting content, live streams later down the week as well. And again, if you guys want to support me more, or if you want more content, check out dfsbythenumbers.com. That's where you'll find all my other content behind the scenes, doing a ton on there. But yeah, should be a light week for me, I'm thinking. Not a ton of spots sticking out, to be honest, but that's all right. We got good cards coming up. UFC 313 coming up. Pereira, Ankalaev, another Apex card next week. So I'm gonna keep it light and attack these next couple cards heavier. So yeah, best of luck, guys. Enjoy the card, and we'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.